environmental engineer. I mean, you guys tell us, we give you an overview of
So,
the
yeah,
story. It sounds like you have a,
We've read through all of the materials that were provided to us. Unfortunately, it sounds like you did not hear the staff's position, just so you know, the staff report is now posted online, sure, it wasn't before. But any concerns you have that you wanted to share with us beyond what's shared in those written materials would be expressed here, and then we'll move to the board to ask any questions they have for you all as the appellant.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily add more than what's already been presented, but do you have Bowman's or our latest memo with Bowman's attachment that just shows some updated grading?
For those online that you can now hear us, we are on ZAP 25-6, 250 South Union Street.
Are you looking for a different project plan?
Yes, Secondi Riley Engineers.
It might be the final analysis, Sanborn development. I think that's what you're talking about, Sean.
Sure, that's
Your memo on October 10th.
yeah, the most recent one, yeah.
Yeah, it's called final analysis, Sanborn development.
Was there some part of this you wanted to highlight?
Just the plan.
So you're not wanting the Riley Engineers report Friday, August 29th? Final analysis, Bowman, you're looking for? Is this what you're looking for?
That's it, yeah, thank you.
Is there a plan or?
Yeah, another plan attached to it. Yes. So that's it there. So you can see the gray is the shading of the driveway. It's not complete for the other plan just because it goes beyond where we're feet are. So you can see 254 is what's labeled as building, all the garage or barn, and just north of that, there's grading that you can see in the photos that shows fill that's just been pushed up against the picket fence. And so the plan here would be to flatten out that grading. Instead of grading down to the south, it's going to grade to the west. And there's a suggestion to put a short retaining wall starting from, there's a tree to the east, just as the driveway starts to turn to the north. So you would put in a retaining wall, short wall, not as substantial as the wall that's adjacent to their house where it says existing wall, the wall that's in north-south orientation. So a shorter retaining wall, basically a small site wall that would retain any new fill that they have that has been placed over the recent history to create that, we'll put in air quotes, parking area. So that's the proposal anyways, or a suggestion to modify the proposed site plan.
Are there specific concerns with the geotechnical analysis from the property owner that you feel like are addressed by this?
This would address those concerns, meaning fill that would, if the fence wasn't there, that fill would just erode, spill into 254's property. So the idea would be one drainage, make the drainage instead of draining south, drain west, and continue down toward their retaining wall. And then secondly, fix the grading such that it's not up against their fence as a retention, and actually retain that fill with that small red highlighted angle.
And are there specific issues with, I understand you haven't had a chance to look at the staff report, but typically when there is an appeal, it is an appeal against specific scenarios in the code that you feel like are not addressed with the application. My understanding is you're concerned about water coming onto your property.
Water and just soil stability.
If you scroll up, there's a picture of the fence that's actually retaining. Acting as a retaining wall. You'll see it.
Maybe not in this one, oh.
I saw it earlier come up. I don't know where it is, but it gives you a visualization of there. That's it. That fence is 20 years old, and that's what's holding back the north side of or the south side of 250. That's all there is. But straight ahead, there's a real retaining wall securing the building on the west, but there's nothing on the south. There's absolutely nothing on the south with that fence.
This is land that they brought in to raise up their
That's all
driveway.
refill.
And they added, they added this wall here to protect their house. And then they use our fence to retain this land that is slowly runs into our driveway.
If that fence wasn't there, all that you see there would be in.
We just need them to put the same wall that they put to protect their house along this side to protect our house as well, to hold in the land that they added.
And
That fence is your fence and it's on your property.
yes,
And all that is unpermitted improvements. So that retaining wall that they put in a couple of years ago, as they were ripping out that unpermitted parking lot in the back, they threw in a second retaining wall there and added a bunch of new fill.
Yeah, that wasn't the retaining wall they were asking permission to do. They asked the retaining wall, they were asking permission. It was a retaining wall that is against the barn in the back. They rebuilt that retaining wall. And then they happened to slip this one in. Because they brought in so
Retaining wall
much.
for the barn is never supposed to be approved because there was a contingency to build a driveway. So the driveway that's currently there, the original design for it is contingent on a shorter retaining wall for the barn. And so what they've done is expanded, so the previous owner sort of, as she threw in the parking lot in the way back, she expanded the front porch, which she never really could use because the retaining wall for the barn was so short, et cetera. So she regraded and added a porch. That never got counted as part of the lot coverage in other calculations. So they used old lot coverage calculations, but there's a deck up there and the deck is even bigger now. When they built the bigger deck with the retaining wall that they did get the permit for, they used old lot coverage calculation, didn't redo it. But with the new deck for the retaining wall, they have changed the original permit plan for the driveway from like 1967. And then when they had to rip out the additional unpermitted lot in the back, they put in a retaining wall there, regraded the hill, and dumped a bunch of fill. So now they want to expand this driveway more. Again, we're just saying, if you're gonna do that, and we've got experts to back this up, and it's just common sense. That driveway isn't gonna work without a retaining wall on the 254 side, because as you can see here, it's just sloping down.
you can see the fence already.
What is the difference in height between what's on this side of the fence and what's on the other side of the
It
fence?
shows in the next.
Changes
that goes
up the hill.
Sorry, can we just, I'm just curious about something. Can we go to the approved and for the property?
It's right on the side.
The second attachment. So this is the plan that the owner presented that was approved, right?
That this is the one that was approved. for-
Okay.
For this appeal.
Am I, so there on the bottom, there's like a narrow strip of brown and it says retaining wall.
So Scott, if you could zoom in to where it shows the garage on the 254 property and the bill. So there is a note, and I'm glad you're bringing it up. There is a note that says bill, so you zoom in a little bit more. And actually that leader is right below the garage. Yep, it says remove stone within 5 feet of the property line, replace with a mulched garden bed. So the suggestion is, we believe, given this, the grading and the slope, that wouldn't be stable. And it's proposed to put in where that quote unquote mulch bed is gonna be, a short retaining wall to retain the gravel, because we don't believe that a mulched garden bed will retain that gravel driveway. So we want to suggest to the owner of 250 to put in a short retaining wall to retain his stone. And then the issue with this drawing, and I'm not saying that the survey is incorrect, but I will say that the grading, contouring, and the detail of the contouring along 254's border with 250 is somewhat inaccurate. It's just not, it's not fine tuned. They didn't take enough points on the ground to know what the contours actually do between the two properties. There is a delta of grade from 250 to 254. 250 has raised grade, and not feet. I'm not talking tens of feet, but I'm talking half a foot to a foot, and it changes as we go to the east. Because that there's hills or there's slopes in two directions, right? There's a hill that would be under the slope district because of to the east, to the west, it's sloping down to South Union. The natural grade just slopes down to South Union. But there's also a slight change of grade between 254 and 250. So they're suggesting that the contours that are along that fence line is not really a change in slope, but it actually is. And so what's happening is with heavy rains, that area gets overwhelmed, and there's some washout. It washes up against the fence. It's tipping the fence. It just needs better controls, better engineering controls. And that would be just regrade that. So the suggestion of a mulched garden bed, I think could be improved with a short retaining wall and fix the grading in between the proposed wall and the 254's picket fence.
Yeah, just some history of these properties. Cindy and I have been here for over 50 years. And we're 254, neighbors to the north are 250, to the south is 260. And back in the day, you could actually drive a car from 260 through 250 and down. It was flat. Those three properties were flat. And then over the years, 250 slowly built up without authorization, their side of it. And I'm not saying these folks did it, but over years it was done. And so now you do have a dramatic, we could show you what it used to be to what it is now. There's a dramatic difference there. So much so that, again, that this is our concern, because that picket fence or that stockade fence is the only thing that's holding that up. And we suggested before this was done that they put in a retaining wall before that was done, and they ignored our advice. They built up the retaining wall on the west side too high to protect their property, and just sloped over to us with nothing. And the common sense would have been, if you're putting those blocks in, put one on the north, put one on your south side. They didn't do that. They just put it in and graded it up, and now our wall is a retaining wall, and it's not gonna last forever.
So if you scroll, Scott, if you scroll down where it says, the other file, the other PDF. So on your left-hand side, just scroll down on the files that are on the server there.
Can I have one more thing before we leave this? Also, one other thing that happens is the snowplow in the winter, we do have snow here in the winter. And the snowplow comes up that driveway and plows everything onto our property line. And then he goes up and he plows the other thing, and they have this thing there that says snow storage. And that's a hill. I can't imagine the plow is going to come up, go into the driveway and then plow this stuff up onto the hill to the barn of their house. Where they plow all the snow that they're coming up the driveway is right there. And the wall would help us with that too, because they'd have to stop at the wall they built that is protecting our property, the snow and all the water and the drainage that they pile there. Right, so. Sounds. Besides,
Logically, you know, if we wanted to get into snow storage, logically where the where it's shown as gravel adjacent to the pavement and in the area that we're focusing in on, that just inherently will be where the plows are gonna put their snow. But right now, there's nothing that's blocking that snow pile from pushing into the picket fence of 254. So, you know, that's not an engineering quote unquote slope stability issue, but that's just another part of, you know, the concern to not have an engineered structure that separates the gravel and that picket fence. So just to emphasize the grading, if you, Scott, if you scroll down on the left-hand side where the files are, I want to open up a PDF. Yeah, I think you already, it's where it says, good, yep, Riley Engineers report, like that one right there, yeah. I think you've already had that one opened. So if you scroll down, I think it's gonna be on page 8. So this photo right here, you actually scroll down just that right there. So this just gives an idea of, it's Bill, right?
Yeah.
So we've never met Sean.
Sure.
I've done all my discussions with Cindy, so, and your daughter, so
Yeah.
this is just a photo looking up the hill. So you can see the block wall that they installed, and that's the wall that has a north-south orientation. There's a few boulders in there to sort of retain, so it doesn't wrap around, so because there's a corner there. And so what they've done is just put a few boulders in there, so that soil doesn't, and good on them for that soil to not roll down the hill toward us or toward the west. But as you can see, the tipped fence, you know, those boulders, right behind those boulders, that's the crushed gravel that they brought in to fill in that parking area. So the suggestion is, on the plan, on the approved site civil plan, is to remove that, move over a little bit and put a mulch bed. We just don't think that's engineered well enough. So the idea would be to, from this corner, go east and just put a corner in, like extend your retaining wall.
Put a real retaining wall in, and you can see that the retaining wall is 2 blocks high. Well, the reason the first block was put in because a previous tenant drove a car right into the building. So then the landlord, where was the landlord at?
I know.
I can't remember the landlord.
Ashley?
Ashline, yeah, Carl Ashline. So Carl, when his tenant drove their car into his building, Carl was put up that first block, that retaining wall. And that was high enough to stop a car from driving into his building. Now you can see they had to raise it up because they raised the ground level so high that they needed a second one.
So in this same file, if you scroll down to page
Can I ask you a
14.
question?
Sure.
I know this has been a dry summer. I don't know exactly when all this work was finished, but do you have gravel material coming under your fence onto your property?
Yeah.
Do you have any photos of that?
Oh, geez. I mean, we have photos when this was flat between the two buildings.
I was doing.
My daughter calls on me again.
And again, the only thing we're asking for is a retaining wall to protect our property, it's nothing out of the ordinary.
So to be clear, the geotechnical report is asking that the gravel that's there now be separated via some landscape fabric and then a mulch bed. That's the
That's their solution.
recommendation.
I'm not sure if that's from the geotechnical engineers, from the site civil engineer, that's on the plans set. Site civil engineer, which I think is Krebs and Lansing. I have to double check the title block and confirm that's this.
So that's six.
I think we've got a pretty clear picture of your stance. I think just want to hear from the landowner,
Sure.
property owner now. My-
Do that one last.
All I was just suggesting to Scott is to scroll down to page 14 in the same document, you can see what Bill was referring to. In terms of the building, if you keep scrolling.
You see, yeah.
If you keep scrolling, there's a section of this report that shows, so I stop right there. Scroll back up. One more. So this is the construction of that wall and adding a block, that's all that I was referring to. And so that's recent, that's 23, right? That's not.
So that's how
not
much
years
they
ago.
raised.
Yeah, okay. No, they did, yeah, these are the new owners that did.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've already sworn in, but it's helpful if you just let us know. Each of you are, and then you want to respond to anything from staff report or from.
Do intros, my name is Rob. Andrew and I are the owners and managers through just Delta Properties, so. The other folks here, Greg Dixon, the Krebs Lansing engineers, who do their engineering.
I'm Eliza Van Lennep. I'm an attorney. I'm not necessarily representing them in this matter, but I've represented them with a dispute between them and the neighbors at 254 back in 2024. And so I had corresponded with their prior counsel, board member La Rosa, and I believe that my letter was submitted to the board for their review. So I'm here to speak to that and not much else.
And there's certainly the complicated past of the property with prior owners and neighbors, and it's really our stance is that's not what this hearing is about. We have a tremendous permit that Greg's helped us put forward, and we're trying to get this property compliant with today's most rigorous regulations for that specific area. So, as Mary mentioned, in 2023, we removed the upper parking area. That's what we're here to permit today. And a lot has changed since that was initially put in and since we pulled it out. Mainly stormwater and runoff, steep slopes changes. So there's a lot that Greg has done to ensure that we're compliant with the current regulations in that area. So if I could turn it over to Greg to speak on some of those, it'd be helpful.
Yeah, so we were hired in the beginning of the year in the spring 2025 to do a site survey and sort of look at trying to put the parking lot back. And so we did a survey, I think in April of 2025, just of our property. We didn't go on the neighboring properties. That could be some of the differences that the opponent was stating. We just stayed on our side. Got fence shots and stuff like that on our side of the property.
I haven't tested yet, that's probably the delta in terms of the survey.
And the main point of us being hired was to develop the parking lot. But then as we started to work with Mary and the city, I found out about some of the other items that we're discussing today. And so the area that we were just discussing right there, we were just trying to remove the gravel that was within the 5 feet of the property line. I didn't think the grades didn't seem to be that excessive. There did seem to be kind of a hump, and that most of the water was kind of wrapping around buildings. So I was just sort of saying, okay, well, the gravel on our property that's within 5 feet. Majority of the work was done to facilitate the new parking lot in the back, and then stormwater revisions for post-construction stormwater permit. And so we put in the parking lot, and I worked with city stormwater to develop two small basins, bioretention basins up here, and then one down in the front of the building. The front of the building is more to take on the water of some of the rest of the property, and then that small retaining area is for the parking lot. So that is what we were hired to do, and then through the process, Mary also asked us to reach out to a geotechnical engineer, which we did. We got a report on, I think mostly looking at sort of the major development, which is the parking lot. I believe that sort of wraps up what we did.
If I might add, the geotechnical report also analyzes the retaining wall with its ability to resist ground movement. So that's included in that analysis.
So I'm not sure if this is for you, Mary, or for the development team, but when we're looking at the steep slopes ordinance and the requirements there, does that apply to the whole parcel? Or to just specific portions of the parcel?
Well, it's anywhere where there's a 15% grade change, and since the majority of this project was in the back, that's where our focus was. Because there is a significant change in the back.
Just wondering if that ordinance, I guess, applies to this area of dispute. Because I'm not convinced that the plan provides adequate stability in that fence line. If you look at the requirements, the district-specific regulations, I'm looking at part E, 1E, that says finished grade shall be reasonably safe from slide, collapse, or similar failure, as determined by the ZAO, the DRB, in consultation with the city engineer. So do the opinions that we've been provided address that criterion as it relates to this section? Still sort of disputed project area.
Staff, being myself, relied on the reporting from their engineering team in that report that was submitted.
I don't know, Greg, if you can speak to that.
I mean,
it might be helpful to go back to that photo because I understand most of the drainage flows to the north and then to the west, but it does look like in the original topography and even where the gravel is, there's likely an existing or will develop a channel right on the fence line. It's really got nowhere to go except onto the neighbor's property.
I think some of the issue might be what was maybe classified as the project development area. I mean, this removal of the stone is kind of the only thing we proposed as part of the project. We weren't proposing additional grading or anything else like that. So I don't know if that was.
But if you remove the stone, you're just making it steeper on that side.
Well, no, we keep the grade. I mean, that was sort of, the intent was to sort of change the color.
Can you pull up the photo we were looking at with the boulders?
I guess similarly, I'm a bit confused by what is shown on that plan as the gravel is already almost 5 feet away from the fence, but that's not what photos seem to show.
I mean, that's what we shot at field. I know the photos were from 2023. I was hired in 2025. That's just what we.
Oh, you want more recent photos? You got photos, the gravel's still on the back. And then I located the photos of.
Oh, hold on.
So that one up there. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell. I can't say for certain, but it looks like there's a bit of an apex in that gravel. Where most of it, maybe from the edge of the retaining wall, goes north. But it's clearly subsiding. And it looks like there's a lower kind of section that runs down the south side of the gravel that is hitting the retaining wall and going south.
But are you saying because this photo is dated 2023, that's like not your understanding of the current condition?
It wasn't what we shot. I do think this area is filled in with vegetation a little bit more. I mean, that was 2023. My survey team is just out there doing the limits of the gravel. The gravel on kind of on the ridge was probably more maintained accidentally by plowing. And this sort of side slope has kind of filled in with vegetation would be my thought process on why my survey team didn't see the boulders and stuff like that, but
To any of your knowledge, has any work been done in that space since this photo was taken?
No work has been done or regraded other than maybe like a season, a plow season. Where there's hopefully running across frozen gravel if they're probably can't get past the boulder on the left.
Yeah.
Seems like happy they put there, but there's also a ton of vegetation there that distorts the kind of distance that this runs up that slope to print out so that you can see what.
I didn't mark these other than with a sticky, but this is the current conditions. Would be helpful.
That's the last bit.
It's not attached, it's just for reference, I don't have enough other one, but people review them. Approximately in the past few weeks.
Clearly, the level of the grade here runs into the fence. Can
we see that?
Yeah.
Put that up on the screen.
Well, you have it. What we've got going.
Yeah, as you've asked, this is the steep slope overlay. This is the project area here. This is our 250. The red area is steep slopes. So it looks like it begins just after the Riley's garage.
But headed downhill, like downhill is to the west.
Downhill, this is west.
Mary, is that on a public, I couldn't find, is that on the city website, that access to that GIS application where you can bring up the steep slopes?
You can get there through data.
Oh, okay.
Through open data, that's correct. But we also have an overlay map in.
I saw the overlay map, it's very granular, you can't even
Yeah.
see property boundaries, I mean,
Yes.
it doesn't have parcel bounds, but that's helpful to know.
I also want to share along with that once before work was performed, it would be helpful to compare before work.
And what work you were going to do?
The 2023 work that was performed. The
Repairing that.
yeah, so those blocks were, I mean, I can speak to that, it's in my letter, I don't wanna go over ground that you're already aware of, but there was a small amount of in-kind work performed to that area. So that shows the before condition at the time that they purchased it. I would note that there's a mention in the materials that there was paving or addition of hard pack in that area. I think that mischaracterizes the material that was placed there. It was very similar to the material that had pre-existed, which you can see from the character of the material there.
Really great teams there.
I would also note that these conditions have likely existed longer than 15 or 20 years. Or it should consider that as well as the applicable review period that was mentioned.
Well, when were the boulders put in? Just looking at those put in recently in part of the in-kind work.
So there had been these blocks, and is it okay if I go on? So there had been the blocks that were pre-existing. You can see them both in the prior photo as in the current photo. You know, not to bore you with photos, but there are more photos, I think, submitted as part of the appellant's application packet that show that those blocks had toppled down the hill over some period of time. There were trees that had grown up around and through them. So I think those trees had sort of pushed them over. You could see both you know, cinder block style blocks as well as these large sort of concrete blocks that had fallen down the hill. So what they did as part of the paving project, and if I may, I want to just indicate that the paving only occurred in this portion. At no point in time did they repave this section that was alleged in the materials provided. This section was not repaved. So the repaving occurred here, and the removal of the paved area that's now subject to this permit application is up here. So the type of work that's being alleged really did not occur as stated in the materials. I just want to be clear about that. And so those blocks having toppled, I think there was a mention that they were never as high as they are now. I believe they had just fallen over down the hill towards the main house. So there had been some excavation just behind those blocks, there had been a new gravel base laid, and then the blocks that had been there previously were stacked back as they had been based on their prior count, more or less. And so there was not some, doubling or large expansion of that existing wall. Regarding the boulders themselves, Rob, maybe you can speak to this, but my understanding is that sort of was existing material in and around the earth that had been there when there was some excavation of that area. And that they were placed sort of at the corner of that installation of those concrete blocks to, again, provide protection to the neighbor's parcel. And there's one that's placed sort of in that curved area to prevent parking. I think you can see in the current photo, there's like a grill and some stuff over there. It's not being used as a parking area, maybe momentarily, but it's not being used as a parking area. And the stones serve to prevent use of that area by a vehicle.
Just to clarify on the blocks that you mentioned, there were no new blocks brought in, it was the existing blocks that were.
Some of them have been crumbling, so they were replaced, but they weren't like added to, as far as I understand.
As far as I understand, it's not true.
That's not true. We're not having.
I'll give you a chance to respond. Okay.
I'm using images, ECI performed the work, I was not there on boulder placement day.
Any other questions for the?
I assume, I'm just gonna ask this, neighbors have asked you to build another retaining wall, I assume you all are opposed. That's sort of why we're here, you're not willing to do any additional work outside of the property.
This is first a clear request.
Okay.
For the retaining wall.
I would also just add that there was a conversation offered that wasn't necessarily accepted, and so I think
We don't need to get into. The conversation.
I think
Settlement conversation needs to be had, I just need to understand for our record.
Yeah, I mean, I think that.
There's the willingness to do more there.
Well.
Yeah, I want hanging out first, there's a nice grade change right at that corner rock. I believe if you follow the images, it occurs right in the last like picket, 8 foot limit there. Open to other options there, but we really just try to defer to Greg, the team, what's there, changing less. So.
And Mary, just the last question for you, is there anything in the zoning ordinance that would prohibit some additional retaining wall work in that area?
If it's within 2 feet of a property line, it would require your review.
As it's drawn up in the other engineering diagrams, it looks like it is. The proposed retaining wall appears to be 3.5 feet, right? Because it abuts with the current westerly retaining wall.
The
Proposed by the
Proposed by the, I was just clarifying.
that was part of Rob and Andrew's application, that retaining wall, or the one that's being suggested?
The one that's being suggested. That would be generous. And it was.
I mean, I can't respond to that. The appeal is only on the project that was approved.
I was just curious.
They did not apply for one parallel to the property line.
So I just want to, like, the project area as was defined, what I was hearing is primarily up these spots, and you added these little elements in this gravel corner to try and address some of the previous property issues. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
But it was not.
It was not the main intent
Not
of our
included.
proposal, yeah, and maybe we have some shots in that area, but obviously we need to do like micro grading of that area. Because it wasn't intended place for putting anything.
Any other questions? Okay, I do want to give the appellant just one chance to respond to anything. I would say, repeating anything you've already said, probably not helpful. But any You. You come up here.
Hi, again, my name is Elizabeth. Unwilling story in here. So again, the reason we're here, originally they filed, we're waiting for them to close the original permit so that we can talk about the permit violations that happened with the installation permitted retaining wall. The reason we're here today is because they installed an unpermitted retaining wall, said they would rip it out, told the city they would rip it out. Then the lot coverage area changed and they realized that they could reinstall that parking lot. So rather than rip out the retaining wall like they promised, they put this project plan together. So we're here because of the original issue. So since they're trying to retroactively get approval for that illegal second retaining they put in, and like sort of covering against themselves. Anyway, that's why we're here. So to the point that, oh no, it was just in kind work, we already submitted materials showing that there were additional blocks added and that they are new blocks. And we do have a video of the fill being added. Do you guys have?
Yeah.
You guys know where, you know that picture, right? The before and the after showing the additional blocks. You also asked for, do we have any recent photos of fill on the driveway? I was able to locate some. I only have them on my phone. I don't really know how to submit them, but if you want, I could show you some. This is,
from your side of the fence?
yeah, this is from our side of the fence. So, I don't know how you,
Yeah. I would like to look at it.
I would like to see it, maybe just submit it.
I mean, it's just, yeah, I get submitted after. I mean, this is just some stuff. This is just some gardening. So this, from in front of my parents' garage. So that's, again, you see it's pink. And it's also got some of their, soil in it too. It's just. Okay, so there's the fence. You can see it's looking under the fence, all the pink rock. And then. Pictures of photos. Yeah, there you go. So this is up behind the garage, this is their gravel.
So we do have a board member online that's not able to see what you're viewing.
And this is just after, like. Spring.
If these were emailed now, would we be able to add it? That has.
Here it says there with included.
So
Do you mind forwarding a couple of those
Oh,
things?
yeah, then I can also show you pictures of the. They said there's no such thing, so. It still looks the same. This is just summer, but the picture from 2023, one of the reasons we didn't update it is because it's exactly the same as it did. So again, apologize. But
That's the retaining, that's
This
the
is-
view of the
this is-
older corner.
yeah, this is the boulder corner.
Just more vegetation.
Yeah, just because it's summertime.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been a tree, they ripped it out, but that was there since. The 80s.
Any further questions?
I was just gonna offer a point of clarity, so, it was asked if this point of work. But the area that we're talking about where it says, remove stone within 5 feet of the property line and replace with a mulch permit, that's proposed work. That's not done.
Yeah. Okay. With that, we will close, with hearing for this. Let me know where AJ went.
Oh, like hanging out in the lobby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all. Sure. Anyone from your party who wants to sign it?
All right, the next item on the agenda, CB 25-406, 153 Locust Terrace. Margaret Scharfe and Mark Hall, those targeted demolition renovations. Existing house, are the applicants here? Or someone for the applicants?
Jimmy?
AJ isn't the college trained appeals.
No, I skipped right over them, sorry,
Be happy.
you're not next.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Sorry about that. Scrolled right past it. Item number 2 is ZAP 25-7, 194 College Street. This is Pomerleau family. Proposed appeal of administrative denial of CPS 25 of installed signage. Is the applicant or someone for the applicant here? All right, can I get you to raise your right hand? Anyone who wants to speak on this application, please also raise your right hand. You swear that the testimony you're about to provide in the matter under consideration is true and correct under the pains and penalties of perjury? No. Right. This is an appeal of an administrative denial, and so we'll ask the city to explain to us the basis for their denial first, and we'll go from there.
So this was a Garrett application, but Garrett's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Shiny new job, so.
Oh, sorry, Garrett.
Deal with the appeal. So the permit application, signed permit application came in, I think it was early April 2025 for several different types of signs. Blade sign, lot sign, and window signs here, the screen. Application was made complete in early June. Garrett followed up with the applicant, pointing out the problem with the size of the letters in these 2 Lucky You window signs. So Article 7 of the zoning code sign standards has several parameters around window signs. Limited lettering height, 8 inches. These letters are about 12 inches high. Fast forward to beginning of September, revised sign plans hadn't been submitted, and the application was denied based on the lettering in these window signs being too high. As I noted in the staff report, there's alternative compliance that can get you a little bit bigger lettering, 20% bigger, but not the 12 inches we have here. It seems to me that Garrett promptly denied the sign application for the window signs with the height of the letter.
All right. Your opinion is that it's not letters, it's a logo.
It's a logo.
Explain that to us.
I hired a designer to create the logo, and it's literally not a commercial font. You can't buy that font. They design the lettering themselves. I paid, someone to design the logo, and it's not like a font you can pick on your computer and say, here it is. So.
What do you use that on? Is that on all these? Is it on any other proprietary merchandise?
Yeah, I provided a picture of in-store logo that we have. It's on letterhead, it's on our website. It's literally what we brand our business with.
Smaller sign would be a matter of scale, or is it because it's hand painted on there?
Oh, no, it's not hand painted, no, yeah, just back to scale, back to what the city's going through right now as well, back in April. Pretty much everybody was on College Street, we were moving from Cherry Street. We also had to have some compliance with this Cannabis Control Board for signage, and so we got the signage up so we could move, so we could stay open continuously without having to shut down, because we couldn't have 2 stores open at once. When we got to College Street, recognizing that Main Street was still closed and all the traffic was on College, we proceeded to put up the sign, and we hoped that looking at the previous tenant's logo there in the lower left corner, and then walking around town, even looking across the street, seeing other lettering in town that was larger, we proceeded forward with 12-inch instead of at 8-inch, thinking that the city would potentially offer a waiver, considering the condition of downtown and wanting to attract traffic to our store, and having people see the logo from the street as they were driving. So that was the main reason.
Questions?
No,
Any other questions? So the specifications in the ordinance just says height, lettering, max 8 inches. Doesn't say anything about logo allowing height, is that right? To lettering.
Correct, and the fact that the logo is lettering still subjects it to the lettering standards.
But if it were logo, are there standards for that size?
Look at the one.
There are additional parameters for window signs, basically coverage of the glass.
and that,
Particularly between, what is it, 4 feet and 6 feet or something.
That's
and that's what we took as the direction in sizing the logo, that we weren't gonna be taking up more than 20% of the glass surface area. So we thought we were abiding by the zoning rules. And I provided additional pictures to show other logos in town. I would even say, not to be that person, but currently across the street on College Street, Patagonia has put up a sign in their windows, and the lettering is probably 24 inches tall. And so I'm a little confused on the big quality of window signs in town, so.
As I noted in the report, a lot of the signs in the photos, and we can go through everyone if you'd like, predate the standard. There was 1 or 2 temporary sales signs. There were a couple that I wasn't aware of offhand, but I Frog Hollows, that was a college.
Yeah,
So it's the Brown comments. Mad River, yeah, Mad River Distillery predates it. I'm gonna say.
But that's a logo, that's the logo. Or the Mad River.
And it predates the sign standard.
Okay, well, there's other pictures that I submitted that are
The one-
recent.
yeah, but I was wondering about the dating of it, the two, I have but so like Underground Stacks is pretty recent, and the other one,
There's the boba.
yeah, the boba one,
Yeah,
I
the boba
think
one,
in, what is it? The Asian market, which just opened as well. So I don't think those predate the sign standard, so I'm curious of those pieces.
So which one?
So boba, there's one, so
Yeah.
Underground Stacks you passed,
Prime's been there forever.
yeah.
There has been.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
predated.
Yeah, but that sign is further.
Yeah, so this
Our
one,
share.
that, I think on Always Full,
This,
which I think just
don't
opened
know.
this year.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if they got a zoning permit or not.
Unfortunately, other people out of compliance doesn't.
Yeah, no, I was just curious, I was just curious if that was like a
Point.
zoning, and
You've
if
got to look at it.
that was compliant in a different.
Yeah, so I guess from my point of view, I went around town looking at logos on windows and saying, all right. Logos like the distillery one that, and the one across the street that met the snack store. Saying, all right, we have a logo, see these other logos, our logo's not taking up more than 20% of the window surface area. We would
Generally,
be okay.
generally, the zoning ordinance allows for existing non-compliant uses, so that things that happen before a change in the zoning ordinance do not become non-compliant, because we have lots of properties that over lot coverage, et cetera, and so if a sign existed before the sign ordinance went in place, even if it's not compliant with
It gets grandfathered in.
Yeah.
You're saying though too, Scott, that temporary sale signs don't have to comply with the sign standards?
Correct, if it's there for, it's up to 2 30-day periods in a year. Doesn't need a permit, there's not much to apply to it. There were a couple photos of those.
I mean, and those other logos all have lettering in them, so again.
I wanna be very careful about this, because without a very
clear articulation of when any particular sign was added and what the zoning regulations were at the time. There's a limited amount of information that I think we can reasonably draw from this. I appreciate the feeling that probably have looking at other, whether signs or logos, but let's just be direct, letters larger than 8 inches, which is the core of the issue here. But I think one of the things that the board has to unpack is the difference between a logo and a sign. And 2, whether or not we can draw any or should draw any conclusions from the existence of other lettering greater than what's currently. So, is there anyone here in the audience who wants to speak on this application? Anybody here online? I think we have what we need to deliberate on this, so I'm gonna close the public hearing. I appreciate it, the investigation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right? Now, we're up to Locust Street.
Yeah.
This is Locust Terrace 153, Locust Terrace is EE 25-406. Proposed targeted demolition and additions to existing single family home. Water. Mark Hall. Mark Hall. Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give the matter under consideration is true and correct and contains some penalty for perjury? I do. And Mark, who are you and what do you want to do?
I'm the designer of this building. My clients are Margot Scharfe and Jenna Ford. This is the renovation and additions to a existing house at 153 Locust Terrace.
All right.
Mary can correct me, but ostensibly the reason that we're here is that the renovations and addition are in excess of 50% that is allowed to be approved by
It
Administrative
area
review.
exceeds administrative authority, so.
What do you, I'm sorry, what you say, Mary?
We have administrative authority in design review districts for additions that don't exceed 50% of the gross floor area. This one does, just trips over it, and that's why it's before you.
So this is not lot coverage, you're talking 50%
The gross floor
gross
area.
floor area, so.
Yeah, we have certain provisions where staff can.
For example, if the house is 1,500 square feet and we're adding on more than 700 square feet, then we need to go before you.
What's the design review district here? Is it I'm just curious.
It is within the design review by nature that it's included within historic sites and structures survey of the 5 sisters.
Yeah,
Got it.
and DAB reviewed the application and unanimously recommended approval.
All right. It's a pretty substantial application. Does anybody have any questions?
My only question was about the handling of carport, which I didn't notice mentioned in the staff report. If this were a garage, this design would not be allowed because it's in front of the front facade, but for a carport, that is allowable.
The carport itself extends into the area where the garage was, and the only extrusion is an eave. And eaves are allowed to include.
So that's the definition it falls on. There's not a definition of carport. It's just like, that's a really long eave.
The standards you're referring to are for placement of a garage, and there is no garage anymore.
Old Eve.
Well, there's a reason for it, not one. The focus of the front of the house.
To me, functionally, it's not very different, but, or visually not very different, but.
You've got windows, you've got light.
Frank Wood, right?
Places to put the fireplace.
We hated garages because they were, they've just ended up storage areas, so we always advocated for carports.
His house is
Still
also,
ended up as storage space.
his house is also notoriously leaked.
Yes.
But just.
Anyone in the audience here to speak on this? Anyone have any comments, concerns, questions?
If you're online to speak to this item, raise your hand. We have a couple of folks online with their hands.
All right, any other questions from the DRB? All right, with that, I'll close the application, close the hearing, thank you. All right. Next item is 1925-488, 11 Driftwood Lane, Andrew and Tracy Russell. Proposed replacement of existing seawall to deteriorating condition. Proposal includes replacing the existing aluminum lake access stairs with stone. Applicant here?
I'm here on behalf of the,
Sure, come on up.
my name's Jack Milbank, I work at Civil Engineering Associates and here helping one of my associates who's off visiting his dad. In the family.
Jack, raise your right hand. Swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter under consideration is true and correct under pains and penalties of perjury.
Yes.
All right, if you don't mind, just walk us through, explain what's going on here.
Okay, I'm probably gonna start this historically. So, when our firm got involved with the previous owner. So back in 2008, Owen McBrien bought the property. And at that time, there was a concrete seawall that was stabilized with steel piles that were driven into the sand. And things were fine until the historic high water mark, the lake flooded and rose in 2011. And at that time, after that event, the wall age piles that were supporting the concrete weren't driven far enough, the wall really started moving forward. And so, working with Scott back in 2012, Brian sought some help coming up with a solution to help stabilize that wall. Time we suggested stone, heavy stone wall, not full stone. It was placed in front of that and backfilled with shot rock. And the contract we went through, we got development board approval for that. And subsequently, and unfortunately, the material that was used, it was sort of asymmetric. It was irregular, it didn't lock together well. And with more high water events, wave action, ice push. The shot rock, there's voids in the wall, it's failing. So we're here. Well, let's go purchase the property. Russell's. And the contractor to this permanent maintenance, which is really a replacement of that material with a geometric rock, be a little larger stone, to stabilize that embankment and stabilize the failed wall behind it. And so we worked with neighbors and which is the city of Burlington. Parks Department. The wall returns. And the old concrete wall, the old beach pile wall returned across the property line. And they realized with riprap, they were cool back in 2012. But now we've got new people and new staff, and they really want us to clean up and repair that corner. There's still some steel piles that are running vertically, and the wall after had some boards that were put on top of it. Want to remove those. Want to get the rest and revegetate that along with the wall, the owner's wall. So it's really a maintenance. We're here for maintenance And working with Scott. We had a lot of dialogue with the city. But 2012, they allowed us to access through Lake Park. That event, unappropriated. So now we'll be accessing through the Driftwood Lane. And we worked with the neighbors. In terms of, that's a private road, in terms of trailers, some truck traffic and stuff, working with them. We work with the neighbors, it's sort of southeast. That will make sure that we interlock there. So it's really repair and maintenance of a failed stabilization that was done in 2012. And in all fairness to the contractor, in 2012, Scott's already written stated this, but we shampoo got pummeled. The Vermont side of the lake got pummeled. And some of the material, some of the better material just wasn't available. So. And then there was one other, there was an aluminum set of stairs, and that was going to be replaced with stone, so it would more natural. That was going to be part of the maintenance. That's the only real, not the same footprint, but it's everything's on the same footprint. Like vegetation, removal. I would ask you, feel free to ask any kind of questions.
I've got a question that's not actually related to the physical project, but all the material you bring in is gonna have to come across the bike paths, the access road.
It does come across the bike path.
Is there any sort of plan for managing? How many large truck trips do you have?
There may be 6 trips a day.
Okay.
And the contractor that we're working with on this is called Bird's Eye Site Work.
Okay.
And working with the neighbors and working with the traffic control, they'll handle all that.
So is the plan to have like physical on-site flaggers to help with that? I mean,
They can help as the trucks come. The answer is yes.
yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's just crossing that. Vehicles. That favor is challenging. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I'm just confused about the material. So are you getting rid of the quartzite, Moncton quartzite? You're gonna do.
That's been taken, we're bringing in pan and stone.
And
Yeah, it's great. It's much more blocky and it's,
what do you do to all that beautiful Moncton?
well, that's Bird's Eye. They're gonna take that and they'll be using that on other sites. That's where that'll be headed.
We heard somebody might need another retaining wall.
Yeah.
It's too big for this.
Yeah, the only thing is your regularity of this.
It's amazing how many voids there are.
Yeah.
And how this pulled the material out.
Yeah.
And how, because of that rock and the balance, nicely, some of the stones have slid. But
So the leftover concrete and or mostly the one that is the top of the steel pilings have been covered up.
the H piles will get cut off, but there's 3 courses of wood. They slid into the H pile, those are gonna be removed down to the concrete. Right now, you can see about 1 course. I think you might see it on one of the photos on one of the plans. But you can see that that'll be removed. And the H piles will be cut off. And it'll be some fabric and it'll be reused. Top of that instead of sweeping the wood.
Do we need to make the state's comments conditional of approval? Will the state recommend it?
No, and we have the boilerplate required flood zone conditions. Recommended.
Issues with us approving stuff that goes beyond the property line. Like, technically doesn't have to be a separate. Application.
There's, well, yes. City needs to apply for Letty Park. The extent of work on Letty Park is small enough, but it doesn't. Yeah.
I thought they were referring to it going beyond the
Well, it's on both sides.
95.5 foot mark.
No.
We don't get.
We don't go down there.
Who's city?
As in,
One of the things that the city and the neighbor. We need to tie those in so there's no scattering behind the wall. And the city has a step Gabion wall there, believe it or not, it's been covered over, I mean, it's just naturally, some gets exposed, but. This currently, this riprap actually was tied and agreed on back 2012, and it actually steps up it's in really good shape. And the only thing that's sort of weak in that is the corner, is the actual corner of the wall that wasn't done well because of that asymmetric kind of material. And that's one. We had the opportunity to meet with their manager. They were great. They actually wrote really friendly that and some comments to Scott, who's completed those as conditions if this was to be approved.
Is everybody able to do it like over the winter? Good conditions for doing that kind of work?
It is, yes, it's much better with obviously ice or high water.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the proposed conditions have a traffic management condition for the bike path. Would you be opposed to a condition that requires flagging for large trucks?
I think that just could be, that wouldn't bother the contractor, but I don't know if we necessarily have to hire. Can they do that? Internal?
You like hire, I don't think you have to hire flaggers.
No, that's what I was.
Internally.
Yeah, we're gonna do it with their step.
He's just saying. have
Oh,
a
yes,
condition.
no one's gonna be opposed to that.
This one, this is the one that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still really.
It is very, I think, yeah, Locust.
This is part of, is this part of that many series of cases over the railroad right of ways, property ownership? Why not they?
My understanding with this one was actually the development agreement, the original, at least from streaming sources, was that in order to develop that area, they city requested that the right of way be given to the like that instead of the road.
All right, any further questions? That'll close. Thank you. Yeah.
The next item is ZP 25 456 85 Lakeview Terrace.
Would you raise your right hands? And do you swear the testimony you're about to give, matter under consideration is true and correct on the pains and penalties of perjury? All right, introduce yourselves, tell us what you want to do.
I'm Kelly DesRoches with Lehman Lampier Architects.
I'm Peter Kamitses, one of the property owners. She'll tell you.
So we're working with Peter and his wife Jovial on some renovation and additional plans for their house on Lakeview Terrace. They have a previous addition that was completed in 2014 that we're planning to expand upon. They also earlier had done an ADU that has had some mold and mildew issues that they are gonna end up taking that ADU down, which is freeing up the space for this addition to the back. There's also a secondary structure in the back that is gonna be a greenhouse and a shed, a garden shed. We did go to DAB. They had a few recommendations which we took. We had originally planned on replacing the existing siding on the original house. But they would rather see that smaller narrow wheel siding stay and the clapboards and painted and retained, so we're going to do that. I don't know how much you looked at the plans, but you know, kind of the aesthetic of the back and the addition is kind of more modern aesthetic, kind of going very away from that kind of more traditional gable roof at the front.
that you're going to keep the existing siding on the front porch?
Yes.
DAB also recommended a low wall on the front porch.
Yes, which we've added, just on the elevation.
Questions from the board? Right. Okay. Anybody here to speak on this application?
Doesn't look like it.
All right. I'll close the application then. Wait on it, thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, with that. What?
No, go ahead.
That's it, right?
Yeah, I was, once we get to deliberative.
First, once and I'm one with that, I'll close the public hearing and we'll deliberate on these items.